Happy New Year, everybody. How y'all doing? I'm doing great. I finally took the Part 107 exam and applied for the Part 107 license, which means I can now fly a drone commercially and also know way too much about the weather and airports. Did you know that airports report the surrounding weather conditions every few hours with this extremely long line of numbers and letters, occasionally separated by a space? Well, I didn't before, but now I can read those things and understand exactly what the weather is gonna be like at any airport in the United States. It'll be a great help flying a drone multiple miles away from one. Beyond the drone stuff, I've been sitting here eagerly awaiting all of the games coming out this year. While I'm sure there'll be lots of things that aren't on my radar or even announced yet, I thought it'd be fun to go and talk about the games that we do know about. Of course, we're also getting some Atlas stuff, one of which is only a few weeks away, so I'll be saving those for last. And for the fun of it, I decided to invite a friend of mine along to talk about the stuff he's excited for. Class, if you'd all say hello to our guest, Katana Rikku.
Yo, what's up everyone? Thanks for having me on Macca. As usual, it's always fun to be a part of the channel. But yeah, like you said, we're gonna outline the year and talk about the games we're most excited for. This year in particular is stacked with great games, so there's a lot to talk about. So should you go first? I think you should go first.
Well then, let's get started with a game that I'm probably playing right as this video goes live. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. I have never touched a Prince of Persia game, but a 2D Metroidvania with badass action combat, slick movement so exploration is just as fun, and a satisfying parry that makes me feel untouchable is right up my alley. The Lost Crown looks just incredible, and the demo so far has been great. Another really cool aspect is the game's performance on basically everything. Not only is it running 1080-60 docked on Switch, but the recommended specs to play at 4K 60 on PC requires a 7-year-old graphics card. We need more mid-budget games like this that are made to play and run well. By the time this video is up, the game will likely be out, but I just wanted to express my excitement for it at least once on here. Bad news is, I probably won't get much time with it before my next anticipated game comes out, but we'll be getting to that in a second.
Dragon's Dogma II is a game that I've been waiting years for, and from the gameplay we've seen so far, it looks like the wait is absolutely going to be worth it. The graphics are beautiful, and the gameplay seems even more in-depth than what we had before. In my opinion, Dragon's Dogma was very impressive back when it was released on the Xbox 360 and PS3. The world was very interactive in many different ways, and combat in particular was unlike anything I've played at the time. You were able to latch on the huge monsters and dwell on them while they dragged you around, which was awesome, and thanks to the pawn system, your allies were able to learn different behaviors based on the way you fight and the places you traveled. It's an incredibly cool system that holds up very well today. I'm currently playing the game on my Nintendo Switch in preparation for the sequel, and while I love the game just as much as I did years ago, it got me thinking about a major feature that I would love to see. The one big hope I have for this game is some sort of co-op functionality. Considering the series already had an MMO in Japan, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I'm just imagining the ridiculously large amount of hours I could potentially spend in this game already, but a co-op mode on top of that could easily double my playtime.
So, like I said, I won't be getting much time with Prince of Persia for a handful of reasons. The most important of which being Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. The next numbered title in a series that just went through a name change I'm still grappling with. Lad 8 continues the new turn-based direction of the series, while also acting as a kind of capstone on the Kiryu era. Maybe. They can't seem to decide whether they want to be done with this man or not. Even with a cancer diagnosis, I wouldn't be surprised if he survives. Last year's Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man with the really long name he erased, was a pretty solid smaller scale entry that unlocked a bonus demo for the upcoming game. And that demo alone was more than enough to whet my appetite. Combat feels better. The new job classes are super promising and creative. Side activities like a Pokemon Snap-styled pervert camera game and an over-the-top DoorDash game are loads of fun. And the story already has its hooks in me from what little we get to experience in the demo. I cannot wait to play this game and hopefully maybe finally say goodbye to Kazuma Kiryu. Probably not.
So, Side Order is the new single-player DLC for Splatoon 3, and it's one that I can't wait to get my hands on for a few reasons. The big one is to see what it brings to the table when it comes to the lore of Splatoon's world. If you aren't familiar with the series, you might wonder how deep can it go for a game like this where you play as squids and octopuses shooting ink at each other. Well, my friend, there is a surprisingly decent amount of backstory and lore that enriches the world from a flavor standpoint. The world of Splatoon truly feels alive and bustling despite it being a post-apocalyptic environment. Octo expansion, which was released for Splatoon 2, unveiled some pretty critical revelations at the end that shed light on a lot of why Splatoon's world is the way that it is, and I'm hoping to see more of that kind of stuff with the Side Order DLC. We know so far that it's some sort of roguelike, where it's designed to be played repeatedly in order to receive the highest score possible. It's a unique direction for the game and will be a nice change of pace when it comes to the gameplay. I'm also just ready for some more new story content for Splatoon 3. The main story campaign was already really fun, but based on previous experiences, the DLC is where Nintendo really starts to experiment with Splatoon. It's currently slated for spring 2024, and I've already purchased the expansion pass, so I'm ready to check it out on day one.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm not putting Metal Gear Solid Delta on the list because I'm necessarily excited for it. I'm putting this on here because I'm both scared over what Konami's gonna do with the game and utterly fascinated with how this is gonna go down. The original Metal Gear Solid 3 is my favorite game of all time, and I've been dying to replay it in a way that A, isn't a janky-ass port, and B, doesn't require me to dig out an old console. However, not only do I not trust Konami, but I also don't even plan on giving them my money, even if Delta is good. I'd rather wait until a copy of it shows up at my local retro game store pre-owned. But even with this in mind, I can't lie and say I'm not wide-eyed and attentive for this. If it ends up amazing, that's awesome. If it ends up a dumpster fire, I'll be frustrated, but entertained all the same. At least I still got, like, every other version of the game. Not the Master Collection, though. I'm waiting for that local store thing to happen.
Princess Peach Showtime is one of the games that I'm interested in based on a concept alone. A Peach solo game where she goes through many different transformations to take on different roles on stage seems like it could bring forth some very creative ideas. One moment you're helping to decorate cakes, and the other you're doing kung fu and taking down enemies. It looks like a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what else they have in store. I will say though, I am a little worried that the transformations won't feel as in depth as I'd like. This seems like it could end up as one of those things where you do a few actions and that's it, where the movesets don't feel as fleshed out as they could be, but I'd love to be proven wrong. Regardless, I'll likely be picking this game up on day one. As much as I love Mario games, I'm a fan of games where other characters get the spotlight too, much like Luigi and Luigi's Mansion 3. It also helps that Princess Peach is one of my favorite Mario characters, so being able to play as her is really refreshing and cool to see on the Switch. So yeah, my hype levels are pretty high for this game.
Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is my favorite GameCube game. It's utterly incredible, and I'm absolutely one of those Paper Mario fans who's still salty about the current state of the franchise, even if I do like Color Splash and Origami King. However, the fact that TTYD is being remade and looks amazing has made me the most excited I've ever been for a game in this franchise. There are so many ways in which they could take this remake, and while I'd prefer some others, I'd be happy with anything so long as it came out good. In terms of quality of life, I really hope they add badge loadouts. While replaying the original 64 game last year, I found myself hesitant to try out new badge setups because I didn't want to lose the one I had. Giving the player one or two extra loadouts we can swap between would absolutely solve this issue, encouraging me to experiment more and create different builds depending on the situation. I'd also appreciate some additional fast travel pipes to help mitigate backtracking. While I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be, I absolutely acknowledge the backtracking in this game could be a lot better. In terms of new content, I'd be fine if they added some post-game super bosses like the Super Mario RPG remake did. However, with the fact that there's a new type of Toad design, I'm really hoping there's some kind of additional story content, likely as an optional side quest chain or something like that. Ooh, I'd love if they added some kind of skit system where the party gets to have conversations about the current goings-ons or whatever random crap they want to talk about. I genuinely think that's something from the Tales of series that every party-based RPG should absolutely employ in some form. At the very least, I really hope they restore the cut content from the original release, like the cameos from the Paper Mario 64 partners. Parakarry and Lady Bo made it in the first time, so let's see Goombario and Sushi in there. Hell, make a side quest chain where Mario's new party gets to interact with the old one. My mind is jumping all over the place with possibilities, and I know if I genuinely expect them all, I'll just set myself up for failure, so I'm just gonna stop here and hope even one of these things comes true. God, I'm just so excited. This game looks so beautiful.
My pick here isn't a game, but a game console. So I love my Nintendo Switch. It's my favorite console ever, and I have more hours on this single system than any other thanks to its portable nature. Back in 2017 it blew my mind, and even now when I'm playing a particularly ambitious game on the system, sometimes I sit back and think, wow, I really am playing this game on this tiny console. I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom with all of its mechanics and its massive open world on a 6-inch tablet. Of course, nowadays, the system's flaws have become more apparent than ever. Games are struggling to hit consistently good levels of performance if it's not from Nintendo, and in some cases even their games struggle to run on a little system. With that being said, I think now is a good time to release the next system. They don't have to do anything crazy either. I would be okay with Nintendo sticking with the hybrid model and improving things like system features and performance. That's really the main drawback of the Switch. Everything else has been great in my opinion. And this might be a bit of a pipe dream, but I really want the system to stay the same size. I already think the Switch is a bit large when it comes to portability, and I definitely don't want it to get any larger. I also hope that the system is backwards compatible with our current accessories. Backwards compatibility with our current Switch games seems like a given, but I would love to be able to continue to use my Pro Controller, Joy-Cons, and maybe even a dock with the next system, assuming it's the same size. I'm not saying that they should just reuse the same controllers for the next system and not innovate at all, just that in addition to whatever new controller they come up with, I'd like to be able to use my current controller as well. And lastly, as for launch titles, I don't think my expectations are too high, but I'd like to see the next Mario Kart, 3D Mario, and whatever title Monolith Soft is working on. Maybe it's a bit too early for that considering Future Redeem just dropped, but I still want to see it. With that being said, the Switch has been a great console to own, and I'm very excited to see what Nintendo does for the successor.
I am also excited for the Nintendo Switch 2. Let's treat this like a good segue into the one game we both decided to talk about. Okay, listen, I know Atlas is my main focus, and I'm super excited for Persona 3 Reload, but if I'm not done with that game by the time Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is out, I'm putting it on hold. I understand why FF7 Remake is so controversial to some, but I absolutely adored what it did. While sections like the Junkyard were dragged out to the point of actually being the worst thing I played in 2020, the ways in which Remake expanded upon the Midgar section I thought was incredible. Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge actually felt like characters who I gave a shit about. The world felt even more alive and detailed than it already was. It all just worked for me despite all the shortcomings. I even love what they did with the Whisperers and the themes being explored in the B-plot. Rebirth continues the journey of Cloud & Company as they venture out to stop Sephiroth and make it to the end of the first disc. I personally can't wait to try out how Red 13 plays and see how the returning cast has evolved their playstyles. I loved 16's combat, but the 7 Remake series is how I think this franchise should play in an action-based combat system. I also can't wait to explore the world and see how the rest of FF7 is expanded upon, especially after how they did it with Midgar. However, the thing I'm most interested in seeing is what they do with Zack. I'm a basic bitch when it comes to my favorite FF7 characters, so it comes to no surprise when I say Zack and Aerith are my favorites. I'm still a bit concerned about the voice direction though. Hopefully they took feedback from the Crisis Core remaster and Caleb Pierce is able to give out an ace performance worthy of Zack Fair.
See, I left Final Fantasy XVI a bit disappointed with its combat, but agree that 7 Remake is how the franchise should do action combat. It just makes sense to me. It's command-based and action at the same time. I love it. 7 Remake was actually one of my favorite games released on the PS4, and has landed itself comfortably in my top 10 favorite games of all time thanks to things like its combat system being incredibly fun, alongside great characters, music, and a great story even though it was divisive to some. I loved it so much in fact that the mere announcement of the Yuffie campaign being initially exclusive to PS5 was enough for me to go out and buy the console. Yeah, the expansion was only 4 hours, and yeah, I beat it in a single sitting, but the new story alongside the performance improvements was worth it to me. So obviously, if you couldn't tell, I'm extremely excited for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because it looks like it will have everything I loved about the remake, but with more exploration, improved gameplay, and more importantly, more of that story. Considering how things ended with Remake, what with the crew literally breaking free of fate, anything can happen going forward, and that possibility has me really excited. I didn't have any complaints about Remake, but there definitely was some room for improvement. The linearity and lack of decent air combat were two big ones for me, but the open air nature of the world in Rebirth as well as the improvements in combat should fix these issues. We now have synergy attacks where two characters can do special moves together, and it looks just as chaotic and fun as I expected. Overall, this seems like it's going to be an amazing game to experience, and while it might be a bit early to say now, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth could easily become my game of the year.
Now, before we move on to the Atlus games we know about, I want to run through some quick honorable mentions I have, just to give you guys a bit more of an idea on what I'm looking forward to. Releasing very soon, as in today, is Another Code Recollection. I never played the original Trace Memory, as it was called here in the US, but I always heard great things. The demo was really comfy, and frankly, I just want more adventure games done in this style. Going from visual novels to this and a remake is crazy, and I love it. I played the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong as a kid, but I don't have that many memories with it. I remember a lot more of my time with the sequels everyone is so tired of nowadays, myself included. I'm excited to return to this style of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, especially now that I've played the wonderful Donkey Kong 94. Keeping with the Game Boy Advance, one of the games I'm super interested in is Shantae Advance Risky Revolution. Shantae is like one of the poster children for indie platformers, yet despite that, I really feel like the series is underrated. I'm confident Shantae Advance will be good, and it might not even really suffer from the budgetary issues the series is plagued with, since they're literally developing a Game Boy Advance game in the year 2024. I know people don't like limited run games, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited to drive over to their physical store and pick up a brand new physical GBA game. Much like Rikku, I'm also excited for Princess Peach Showtime. Even with the reputation Super Princess Peach has, I really liked it as a kid and always wished Peach was allowed to have more of her own adventures. From what they've shown, the theater setting looks like it could have a lot of potential, but part of me is a little cautious about the level of ambition. I'm all for the stage play aesthetic, but I hope they go full in on creating these worlds within the stage. While I'm at it, I'm also hyped for the Splatoon 3 Side Order DLC. God, I miss those lesbians. Another DLC I'm hyped for is the Alan Wake 2 DLC. If you watched last week's Reviewing Every Game I Played in 2023 video, I hope you'd understand that Alan Wake 2 was my game of the year. I really want to see what else Remedy has up their sleeves, whether it be set up for Control 2 or simply more content for Alan Wake. I just hope more Old Gods of Asgard come with it. Visions of Mana was a pleasant surprise at last year's Game Awards. I really like the original Mana trilogy, though ironically the one I haven't played is the most famous one. I should seriously get around to playing Secret of Mana one day. Anyway, I'm really excited to see a brand new game that uses the Trials of Mana remake as a base. However, I really hope they add back co-op. For me, that's the best part of these games. And finally, my last honorable mention, Hollow Knight Silksong. Now we have arrived at the final section of the video. The Atlus games coming out in 2024. For the record, I'm talking about games made by Atlus. We won't be talking about Vanillaware, though Unicorn Overlord does look cool. Rikku, you go first since I just talked for a page by myself and need a glass of water.
Yeah, I got it. So I'm really hyped for Persona 3 Reload too, but I've yet to fully finish P3, whether it's FES or portable. It's a complaint that's old as time itself, but I really wasn't fond of the gameplay in FES where you only had control of your main party leader, whereas with portable, full party control was brought in, but I felt like I was missing out on a full experience due to things like the cutscenes and the field exploration being drastically altered. However, with P3 Reload, everything has been brought up to modern Atlus standards, and actually is one of the best looking games I've seen from them. I absolutely cannot wait to play this game and finally experience the story.
Okay, throat's good now. We don't have to wait that much longer for Persona 3 Reload, and frankly, I am so ready for this. P3 is the Persona game I've arguably struggled with the most. I love so many aspects like the characters, story, and tone, but things like the pretty basic social links and Tartarus has killed basically every attempt I've had to finish it. Reload looks to be fixing basically every issue I have with the original, updating everything to Persona 5 standards, and even adding in neat little extras that'll help make the experience more memorable. Atlus just released the intro animation a little while ago, and it really boosted my hype levels, though I do have a thought. There are a few moments in the opening that are strange when looked at in the context of what Reload is said to be. Some shots are really indicative of the answer, which supposedly isn't in the game, making it a strange choice to include this in the intro when the thing it's referencing is not in the game at all. It makes me wonder if it'll be added as DLC in the future. If so, I'd be annoyed, but at least it'd be there in some form. Better than making Persona 3 Fez load or whatever the hell. There's also this shot of the dude with earrings and this woman just like whispering to each other, and then it just kind of moves on. This feels too purposeful to just not have it be something. Like, you don't just throw this in and not have it have any meaning. I don't know, what is this earring, dude? What is the deal with it? Oh my god, imagine if this is like a Final Fantasy VII type situation where it's like, we're gonna do the rebuild of Persona 3, and it's not actually a remake of Persona 3, like, at all. They have the balls to be like, oh, we're gonna subvert your expectations. I would not trust Atlus to do this kind of thing. I love Atlus. I don't think they're good enough to do this and pull it off. It'd be so funny though. People would be so pissed. Oh my god. As long as they don't change the ending, fuck it. Why not? I want to see it. I want to see it. Anyway. We haven't seen as much from Metaphor as we have P3R, but what we have seen has me more than excited to see what's coming. Studio Zero looks to be making a strong blend of Persona and mainline SMT, while setting it in a brand new world just waiting to be explored. I'm really curious to see more details on combat. Right now, I can't tell if it's going to lean towards the press turn system or be something entirely new. Conceptually, the archetype system sounds like Personas under a different name, but in practice, they're actually just a job system with a Persona coat of paint. While I'm glad it's not just Personas again, I do hope archetypes can stand out from the job systems in other RPGs. It's gonna be hard to beat what Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is doing, I can tell you that much. As for the story, all we really know so far is the original concept for Metaphor, that being an inversion of our world, where the inhabitants of a fantasy setting dream of our world as a form of escapism. While incredibly on the nose and frankly basic, I could see this idea lending itself well to whatever themes and social commentary Atlus is looking to explore. I just hope they don't feel like they have to sit you down and spell out the obvious symbolism going on. P5 suffers a lot from this issue, and it can make it feel like Hashino and his team think what they're writing is deeper than it is, and that the player is too stupid to understand it otherwise. Sadly, despite all the hype I have for the game, I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little disappointed in what we've seen so far. As I said in my original thoughts video, I was hoping Metaphor would be an even greater departure from what Atlus has done in the past. I'm not against the blending of Persona and SMT concepts, but I was hoping to see something entirely new for them. While Catherine has a lot of similarities and influences from past games, everything else about it was entirely unique and brand new. There is genuinely no other game like it. So to see that Metaphor is going to have not social links, not calendar system, not personas, and potentially not press turn is a little disappointing. On a more positive note, the concept art goes so incredibly hard, and it reminds me a ton of the concept art for SMT4. Hopefully the fact that it's being made for modern consoles and not a handheld device prevents Atlus from having to water it down in the final game. I love the SMT4 we got, but the concept art for that game is just so awesome and was genuinely impossible for the 3DS to reproduce.
Metaphor is a game that I am admittedly not as excited about as P3 Reload, but I'm still looking forward to it regardless. What grabbed me initially was the idea of an Atlus game taking place in a fantasy setting, as most of their games are based in some form of the real world, whether it's modern Tokyo like Persona 5, or a drastically altered wasteland version of Tokyo like Shin Megami Tensei 5. I've sort of been shying away from analyzing every detail of the trailers so I can jump in somewhat blind, but the story seems very interesting. I love what I've seen and heard so far when it comes to the character design and the music, but I think I kinda agree with Macca's opinion about this game not being as big a departure from Atlus's typical games as it could have been. Before the full reveal, I was expecting a fantasy world similar to Dragon Quest, but what we have here is this somewhat dark medieval fantasy world, which is pretty cool too. What really jumped out to me was the battle system, which looks to somehow have both action RPG and turn-based gameplay, I don't really understand how that works, but it's a cool idea that I'm excited to try out when the game releases.
And that, my friends, are the games we're excited for in 2024. What games are you hyped to play in the coming year? Is there anything we didn't mention you're excited for? Or are we stupid for being hyped for things and we should just be cynical and negative and everything sucks? Tell us in the comments below, and while you're there, why don't you leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of my future uploads. We got P3 Reload coming very soon, and I'll definitely be talking about it again. If you want to help support the channel directly, check out my Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get early access to new videos a day in advance. And of course, thank you to Katana Rikku for joining me here today. Tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Katana Rikku, same for Twitter, also Katana Rikku. I do videos on JRPGs and PlayStation and Nintendo videos, so if you like that kind of stuff, make sure you follow me. You're guaranteed to be goated with the sauce if you do. So yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Macca, for having me on for the video. Always a ton of fun to be a part of things. And yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say.
You all have a wonderful day. I'm gonna go be playing more Prince of Persia. That game looks really fun. It's really fun. I've played the demo. It's really good. Okay, bye.